You are not going to believe this story. So last week, a customer walks into my shop, and she's got this look on her face, and she's carrying this thing that started it all.
She lays it down on the counter and says she found this, quote, long, skinny spoon thing tucked away in her grandmother's sideboard. She had absolutely no idea what it was for, and honestly, looking at it, I can see why. It's a pretty strange-looking object to our modern eyes.
You know, her guesses were fantastic. She's wondering, is it for fishing, that last olive out of a jar? Maybe for jam? She even joked it looked like some kind of old surgical instrument. So take a look. What would your first guess be?
Well, let me tell you, the real answer is way more interesting and way more delicious than any of those. This isn't just some weird utensil. It's like a passport to a totally different world of dining.
What you're looking at is a marrow scoop. Yep, a piece of cutlery with one very specific, very glorious purpose: to dig out every last bit of that rich, fatty, incredible marrow from inside a roasted bone.
To really get this, you have to kind of transport yourself back to the 1700s. See, bone marrow wasn't just some leftover bit. Oh no, it was a delicacy. People called it the butter of the aristocracy. It was rich, it was savory, and serving it was a sign that you were putting on a seriously impressive feast.
And that right there tells you so much about how things have changed. These scoops are proof of a time when nose-to-tail eating wasn't a trend. It was just how you ate. Our ancestors were all about flavor, not how pretty the plate looked. The best taste was worth digging for.
So this little tool wasn't just a flash in the pan. It actually has its own story, its own evolution. Let's take a quick trip through time and see how the marrow scoop changed over the centuries.
The journey is pretty cool, actually. It starts out in the early 1700s, the Queen Anne era. Then it hits its stride in the Georgian period, which is where you get the classic design. Then, of course, the Victorians get a hold of it and give it their ornate spin. And believe it or not, it's even made a comeback today.
And you can really see the whole story right here. The earliest ones, from the Queen Anne period. Heavy sterling silver, super simple, and incredibly rare to find. Then you get to the Georgian era. That's the iconic double-ended scoop in sterling silver. That's the one most collectors dream of. By the Victorian age, silver plating makes them more common, and they get these super fancy engraved handles. And modern ones, totally different, usually stainless steel, short, and purely functional for restaurants.
Okay, so let's get practical. Let's say you're digging through a box at an antique shop and you find one. How do you know if you've got a real treasure on your hands? Don't worry, I've got you covered.
All right, the first thing to do is just pick it up. A real solid sterling silver Georgian scoop has this feeling. It's balanced. The weight feels right in your hand, not flimsy or awkward. If it feels too light, almost like tin, you're probably looking at a later plated piece.
Okay, beyond just the feel, here are 4 quick things to check. First, look for the hallmarks. That little lion passant mark is the classic sign of English sterling. Second, look at the channel of the scoop itself. The edges should be nice and smooth, not sharp. Third, run your fingers along the shaft and feel for any ripples that might signal a repair. And last, and this is a big one, don't over-polish it. That beautiful dark patina tells its story.
So, does this mean sterling silver is always better than silver plate? Well, not necessarily. Sterling obviously has value just from the metal itself, and it's what most top-tier collectors are after. But you should absolutely not write off silver plate. Some of the plated ones have the most stunning, intricate engraving you'll ever see. And a piece from a famous maker like Elkington & Company, that's a serious collectible in its own right.
And here's the real pro tip. For about 100 years, British silver had to be stamped with the monarch's head to prove the tax was paid. It's called a duty mark. So if you're looking at a scoop and you see a nice, clear little head of King George III, you've hit the jackpot. That is a blue-chip, top-tier piece of silver history right there. Those tiny marks tell a huge story.
Okay, so this all leads to the one question everybody eventually asks. Are these just beautiful things to look at, or could you actually, use one today?
Seriously, it's the #1 question. Can you take this thing that's over 200 years old, that's been sitting in a drawer, and actually eat with it? Is that okay?
And the answer is a big, enthusiastic yes, absolutely. Sterling silver is naturally antimicrobial, which is pretty cool. All you have to do is give it a gentle wash with a little bit of mild soap and water, and it is ready for dinner. I mean, come on, it's way better than fumbling around with a butter knife, right?
Another thing people always wonder about is the size. You'll see some that are pretty short, maybe 6 inches, and then others that are super long, almost a foot. So what's the deal with the different lengths?
The answer is just pure, simple logic. It's all about the right tool for the job.
The length of the scoop was designed to match the size of the bone it was going into. So those really long 10 inchers, those were for getting deep into the huge bones of a big beef roast. The smaller ones were for things like lamb or veal. Makes perfect sense.
And I think that's the perfect way to think about these. A Marrow scoop isn't just an old spoon. It's a connection to a different time. A time when a meal was an event. It's a perfectly designed tool for a perfect bite. And really, more than anything, it's an invitation to the table. An invitation to eat like a king.